before I jump into this story that you've probably already heard of, I'm going to go ahead and pretty much talk a little bit about just recently what I experienced with somebody who claimed that they're a PlayStation fanboy. They were talking about how Xbox is supposedly going to be in a position sending its games to PlayStation and how this was going to mean PlayStation was making more money than Xbox because, according to them, all the other 30%, I would say cuts that they take from the third party titles. Now, this is very funny because that's how they had to categorize it. And I asked them and said, okay, so how about the 70% that Xbox is making? How does that translate to PlayStation making more money? And they were like, duh, dum dum. They used the word dum dum. I was like, okay, whatever. Because they're going to get 30% from other developers out there. So then I replied and asked and said, so you mean to tell me that somehow PlayStation is getting more money from those developers on their games, or those developers are actually getting more money? And they told me and replied and said, and I quote, I'm not going to play this game with you, VG. And I said, what game? You sound like you want to run away. And they said, well, you're about to ask me a question that you know the answer to. I said, well, because if you answer that question, you're going to have to delete your comment, because it's a very silly notion to think that a third party publisher that's putting games on your platform is bothered about how much money you're making from other publishers. They're only concerned about the 70% cut or 80%, depending on what game and what agreement is going to them. And one company that has basically, in a sense, unloaded itself of thinking about that burden or even worrying about that burden is Xbox. For many years, Xbox was testing out what it would look like to actually move its operations to a third-party platform. And it successfully did that with Steam for many years. I'm quite surprised that even within the PlayStation community and Xbox community, there are people who see this as a bad thing when many of them did not bat an eye when Xbox was actually making money on the PC platform. In their minds, they were like, oh, PC is this other thing in its own little, category. So if we have our games go to PC, it ain't really that bad. I mean, it's all Microsoft anyways. Dude, they were paying 30% to Steam at the time. So from a business decision, they were on a different platform and even different ecosystem, in a sense, basically putting their games on there with the mindset that they wanted to make money, keep their studios open, and continue to be a sustainable business. Now, here's the truth. There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a smart way to go, especially when somebody hands you a load of, a hot potato, I guess I'll put it that way, when the former guy handed Phil Spencer his TV. I guess we've made a console that is here for people who don't want to blah, 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 whatever the heck he said. And then the fact that the console was basically $500 coming out the door while PlayStation was $300, they done already ruined everything for you, and then they gave it to you. Once they gave it to him, the guy looked and said, well, I can either crash and burn with Xbox, or I can keep Xbox sustainable, not just keep Xbox sustainable, but try to keep Xbox sustainable for the next 20 years as a gaming platform. And I think he successfully has done a lot to actually make that a reality and is about to seal the deal. That's where this article comes in. Here's the Steam on Xbox evidence Microsoft didn't want you to see. Tom Warren is writing this, and apparently this image leaked. Many people don't really see this play. This is Phil Spencer's last stretch where he's going to establish Xbox and pretty much redefine what the industry had basically used. Like, when you think about Peter Moore, where he said, we encourage the console war, blah, 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 blah. Phil Spencer is turning it around, and he's basically playing it in favor of Xbox as a gaming division under Microsoft. Microsoft revealed, according to Tom Warren this year, that it's combining the best of Windows and Xbox together for handhelds, and now the company is starting to drop the first hints at what that UI might look like. Ladies and gentlemen, you're in for a treat. You see, I used to always say, and I have to be honest here, when everybody was talking about this stuff, I did not want to count any chickens. And that's the thing. You want to ensure that you can confirm something that you know is a big winning chess move before you actually start, hedging any of your bets. So I said, well, if Phil's ready, then he'll do it. I remember when I made the video where I said, is Phil Spencer ready? In that video, I said, is he ready to basically give a second layer to the Xbox console to basically be able to go ahead and back end PC? Or maybe it might be a log into Xbox console, There's a Steam app waiting for you. I don't know about an Epic Games. Microsoft and Epic are not, I don't know. They have a very interesting relationship. I guess I'll put it that way. But just a Steam and an Xbox relationship, that sets them up for, I think, the long haul. It takes over the entire gaming industry. No doubt about that, because again, who's going to go buy a Steam console, a Steam hardware, or a PC is going to buy a Steam hardware or a PC. Who's going to buy an Xbox is going to buy an Xbox. Being able to cross that UI from Xbox into Steam, it makes money for Steam. That's what many people are not thinking in this particular regard. But again, let's stick with the topic at hand, because we could run all kinds of chasing of red herrings and we will never return. In a blog post about Xbox opening $1 billion, Microsoft briefly revealed a new Xbox UI that looks a lot more like console-like across multiple devices and even appears to list Steam games. After briefly posting a new image of the new Xbox UI across devices, Microsoft quickly removed it once The Verge inquired about it. The image has a new Xbox UI that can be seen on a TV, where you can clearly see Steam label listed. The same UI with the Steam mention is also shown on the tablet and handheld versions. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is not an accident, in my opinion. I don't think it is. You'd be naive to think that somewhere, somehow, that this was accidentally leaked. No, trillion-dollar company doesn't just accidentally leak something that is groundbreaking. There is engagement that has to be farmed, and I can almost tell you their user research team has got their clipboards and their Twitter accounts open as mentions of this particular thing across Twitter is being looked at, analyzed. Your comments are being read. And to be very honest, you'll be very surprised if, if they haven't necessarily gathered what I think is everything, in my opinion, everything that they possibly could garner when it comes down to this. In fact, right now on Twitter, Steam is trending. Why is Steam trending on Twitter? Well, it's a very easy equation. They are trending on Twitter simply because they are the topic of discussion. They are the subject and the focus whenever you take a look at what's going on. Look at it right here. Trending on gaming, Steam, Tom Warren's article. Then there's Steam stuff about Assassin's Creed and a whole bunch of stuff about Tom Warren's article and Hazard Gaming's own post of Tom Warren's article, and so on and so forth. Before you know, whatever the heck that was, you got flashed. I'm sorry. I apologize for that crud. They got to clean up Twitter, bro. It's so weird. And then, you can basically go ahead and think about all of this in that particular, paradigm. Another really cool thing here, ladies and gentlemen, is if you think about what people are even saying about this is not something new, by the way. I don't know if anybody knows, but again, this is something that's been done before. Like, for instance, if you go to Good Old Games has a launcher that allows for you to be able to go ahead and see all your games and connect them to different libraries. Like in my case, I have, I think I had, or still do have, my Epic Games library, or I did have at one point anyways. I think I may have disconnected it. My Epic Games library connected to my Good Old Games library, so I could look at the games that I owned, and I think, oh yeah, Epic, there it is. The collection appears to the sidebar, it's bookmarked, blah, 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 no results. Okay, I can go ahead and connect it if I wanted to. I think I connected it at one point, and then I basically unhooked it, so you can't see my Epic Games. But you could do that. You can connect all your gaming library and collate them all in one place, and it will basically show you by the different launchers, and you can launch them all from the Good Old Games launcher. So there's nothing really or inherently unique about this. It's just that it's very interesting that this is the time, with all the conversations going around, that this is going to come. So again, I think they're just doing and putting out some feels. This is something that's going to be a welcome change, to be very honest. Like, if people want, I mean, this is not saying that everyone's going to run ahead and go do it. No. One thing PC gamers like is just give them the freedom to tinker their hearts away. Okay? So what I'm seeing here is this. I think this is kind of a precursor for Xbox to continue to open up its ecosystem in a much more consumer-friendly way. Now, as for the console, I don't know how far they're going to go. That's the one that I'm still not certain about how they're going to do it. This PC one is not really a big deal. I mean, all you got to do is come out here and add something. They already have the one to remotely log into your Xbox. You can play your Xbox games. If you can play your Steam games directly from there, you can play them as well. It's not going to be a problem. It will read across your PC. You just have to have Steam launched. You go ahead and launch your game. these little things continue to now make Xbox put themselves in a position where PlayStation has not even touched the PC landscape. Yes, there's Epic Games, but they're a little weird with consumers. But Game Pass has really made everybody look at Microsoft with a much more calm eye rather than skepticism. For instance, and I say that I'm looking at maybe PlayStation, right? PlayStation shows up. And by the way, these guys used to take all the heat and the hate, including Valve themselves. It happens that way. I think what they looked at is Valve's playbook. They looked at Valve's playbook and they were like, what did Valve do to turn itself around? Because according to what people have said years ago, Half-Life, when it came out, was made by Valve, and what they wanted you to do was they wanted to go ahead and download Steam before you could play the game, because that's why they made Steam. They made their own launcher to sell the game and play the game, and people were so mad because people didn't want launchers. But Steam eventually started to provide what I think are customer protections that you can't find elsewhere. And this started to change how people saw them. And they're not just basically selling it. They are about it. Like, they really will protect the consumers on Steam. Steam was one of the first platforms that I saw that they told developers, if your game's graphics is not inside of the game, you have to put a tag that says, this is rendered graphics, blah, 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 not representative of in-game footage. Steam made developers do that so that their own consumers did not get misled by seeing images and stuff. I think it was after like Rainbow Six or a few Ubisoft games. Can't remember exactly what it was. I think they were the first. They may not be the first, but that's my own recollection of the events. If I'm wrong, somebody please correct me in the comment section. So these are little things that they probably have seen. And so when they were coming to the PC side, they came and put the foot forward with Game Pass and ensured that on PC, Game Pass could eventually start accessing everything that console Game Pass could also access. At first, there used to be a discrepancy. I don't know if many of you know, many of you did not follow Game Pass that long, but there were games on Game Pass that you could not get on Game Pass PC because they were just pretty much some benefits that were given to the console player. But Xbox seems now and is saying, you know what? You come into our ecosystem and you'll be able to get the entitlements that are there for everyone. And this has now made them be, in my opinion anyways, much more favorably looked at by the PC gaming scene overall. With that, this is another step to basically get the PC gaming community to say, okay, you guys are serious about serving consumers. There's still a skeptic eye. It is Microsoft anyways, right? But at the end of the day, it's nice to still be able to go ahead and have those options. They've also dropped their nonsense with, Windows Live Gaming, where they wanted to come and charge people to play online on PC. That stuff did not work. They realized real quick. It says, while the image appears to be a mock-up with owned games listed twice as well as action adventures, I don't know if you guys saw it, owned. It's basically a feeler. Action adventure titles. I don't think the Steam label here is necessarily a mistake. Sources familiar with Microsoft plans tell me the company is currently working on an Xbox app update that will show every game you have installed on your PC. That includes games from Steam and Epic Games Store, and I understand Microsoft will label these games accordingly. So I think what it's going to do, it's going to pretty much go on a Windows layer that just reads the games because they are on the operating system. Interesting stuff. Now, how are they going to go ahead and do this with console? Are they even going to entertain the thought? I don't know. I'm not certain. I don't really think so. But again, who knows? Phil Spencer might be, like I said, in his final stretch, he might be going for the home run to pretty much change gaming forever. And that is the move that's going to flip gaming over. Right now, gaming is tilted an entire 90 degrees or 100, I'll just say 180 degrees. But man, Bro can 720 it with that move with, just by doing that. And then he just basically keeps gaming in a very interesting place. I think from then going henceforth, if they make a console that can pull this off, I think they will, but I'm not certain. And that's where I land. I'm just not sure that they will. Thanks for watching the video. Appreciate you guys' time and audience. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.